Hi everyone, welcome to Wine Styles Inc. and 10-Minute Tasting. I'm Mindy and I'm here today with Paul and Cheyenne. And we're going to be chatting about some really interesting European white wines today. We've been learning about some great varietals that a lot of people may not be aware of, and we're super excited to bring some new things to your palate. But before we dig into the wines that we're going to be tasting today, Cheyenne, can you talk a little bit about the European wine region and white in general? Because oftentimes I think we think about reds when we're thinking of Europe.
Yeah, definitely. So anything in the European wine world, if it comes from Europe, it's considered an old world wine. Everybody's heard of French wines. I mean, it's the king of wines, but I'm convinced that not too many people have heard of Alsace, which produces some of the best whites that I've ever had, including Pinot Blanc. The Kunzbach and the Trimbach Pinot Blanc are some of my favorites.
Those are great.
Those are in my constant rotation.
Those are definitely one of our favorites, and I think we get used to Chardonnay and Pinot Gris and things that we've heard a lot about. And there's so many other varietals from areas around the world, and we're really excited to bring some ideas for new whites to everybody today. Two of them from the northwest region of Spain and Portugal, kind of that same little area, and then one from Italy. So.
Absolutely. So if I say Italian white wine, what are you automatically thinking of, Cheyenne?
Automatically, I usually think of Pinot Grigio or Moscato. Moscato d'Asti is a very popular wine, especially here in the Midwest. But Italy does produce some amazing whites that aren't going to be Pinot Grigio or Moscato d'Asti. So, I mean, I'm excited to kind of learn a little bit more about the different whites that Italy has to offer. I know that we had an Arnese a couple of months ago that we brought in, and that was an interesting white. It was so different. And so I'm assuming that the Soave is going to be similar to that in something that's different and interesting. Paul also mentioned Spain and Portugal. Surprisingly, Portugal does not just produce ports. I know that's shocking, but they do produce some amazing whites and reds. And the one that we'll be trying, I believe it's called Vinho Verde.
So it is Vinho Verde.
Vinho Verde.
Yes.
Okay.
I've been listening to a lot of
You have to
podcasts with
practice that.
help with
You have to
that.
practice
Yes,
that one.
yes. And specifically the Vinho Verde that we're trying is, I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly as well, it's 100% Loreo, which is interesting because Vinho Verde is usually a blend based primarily off of Alvarinho.
True, yeah, and Alvarinho is the other varietal that we have. It's from northwest Spain, so just north of Portugal, where Vinho Verde hails from, and that is an Alvarinho. And there's two different pronunciations, like a lot of things in wine. Albarino would be the Spanish pronunciation, and Alvarinho, little different spelling, same grape, is the Portuguese pronunciation.
Yeah, so Vinho Verde is really interesting. We've had a couple different Vinho Verdes in the store before, and typically they have a little bit of spritz in them. Some producers add CO2 as part of the production. That tends to be more in the mass-produced wines. So that's all, honestly, I was kind of familiar with up until we started really researching a little bit more on Vinho Verde, because it seemed like an interesting region and wine. And the one that we're tasting today is a little bit more premium, so it doesn't have any of that spritz to it.
So Vinho Verde, just in translation, means green wine. And clearly this is not green. This is a beautiful golden color, similar to a Chardonnay. There may be a little bit of a green hue to it, but the green comes from young. So not that the grapes are not ripe, but they're picked in an early stage. And so you're going to get a wine that is very acidic, bright, very food friendly, and actually lower alcohol because the sugar content in the grapes when they're picked is lower. So really nice summer picnic wine, goes with everything seafood. All of these wines hail from maritime climates, so very, very close to water. And if you look at the local food scene, seafood is king in these areas.
Yeah, when you're drinking these, at least when I'm drinking these, I imagine myself on a little Chase Lounge with the ocean breeze and that salt, because these tend to have a lot of minerality and kind of that higher acid that Paul talked about.
It's very mouth-watering, nice acid level, nice bright fruit flavor, and again, it comes from a younger wine. These are not aged for long periods, and typically Vinho Verde does not get aged in oak. It's going to be a bright, minerally wine like this. This is just beautiful.
Yes, but it does still have a nice full mouthfeel. Like,
Yes.
I don't feel like I'm missing out on having something heavier. Like, I would definitely pair this with a chicken or even a pork.
Absolutely.
Has a really, really long finish too.
And back to what I think we talk about every time is Asian food. Would be perfect with either sushi or a more sauce-based Asian food. Yeah.
And the great thing is the price point on these too.
Yes.
I mean, this being a more premium Vinho Verde, and it retails around $14. Just people aren't aware of it. So if you're looking for something different to replace that unoaked Chardonnay, or maybe even replace that Sauvignon Blanc, it has a little bit of kind of California Sauvignon Blanc I think to it. It makes me think of that. This is a great alternative.
Absolutely.
And speaking of which, both Spanish and Portuguese wines, I feel like have amazing price points, because I mean, I usually go back to Spanish wines because they are a little bit cheaper. But they also have such a high quality, and
Absolutely.
I think why it's not necessarily going to be in those higher price points is because there isn't necessarily as much of a demand here in the United States.
So let's call it good value.
Yes.
So high quality
It is.
for not a high
It really
price.
is.
Yes.
So very good value.
Great value wines.
Great value wines, yeah. So the next one that we're going to taste is from Rias Baixas, which is northwest Spain, right on the coast. And this is a 100% Albarino. And so classic grape for that area. I think something like 85 to 90% of the grapes grown in Rias Baixas are white grapes. So they do a little tiny bit of red, but by and large they're white grapes.
Yeah, another one that takes a little time to practice, because it looks like Rias Baxis. So Paul's saying it very well. We've practiced that quite a bit. Rias Baixas.
Baixas.
Yes. So another interesting name. And Albarino has become one of my favorite white wines over the past couple of years. It is so versatile, as well as we mentioned earlier, all of these wines are, but fresh, great minerality, great fruit coming through on it.
So I was a lover of Chardonnay when all I knew was Chardonnay. I thought there was only one white grape apparently, and we know that there's many different expressions of Chardonnay, but there is so many amazing whites. We love Sauvignon Blanc. We absolutely love Albarino, and the Suave, which we tasted last night. Not only is it a super cool name, I mean, who doesn't like the name Suave? It is a powerhouse wine. It's going to be a little bit deeper, a little bit more full-bodied, sometimes actually aged for short periods in oak, and it is one of the superstars of northern Italy in the Veneto region. Just absolutely beautiful. So you tasted this already. How does this compare to
this Albarino? I think because it goes through some malolactic fermentation, a little bit creamier on the mouthfeel.
Definitely,
So a little bit more weight on it.
definitely a different texture to it. It's just delicious again. Incredibly, I just want to have food with this. It just screams lunch with some prawns or some other nice salad.
I can
some
just
cheese.
imagine like sitting in Barcelona eating paella and drinking this.
Okay,
Absolutely,
now there you go.
yes.
That's a good image.
Yeah, and another interesting thing is how much the terroir, or really the region, can affect this. Because when you're closer to the coast, right on the coastline, it tends to have that higher minerality, versus when you move inland, it's going to have a little bit decreased acidity, decreased minerality, different temperature variation, different soil. So it's fun to explore all different areas, even within the same kind of larger appellation or larger region.
Absolutely. And so hopefully we've sparked your interest in whites, if you're a white drinker or even if you're a red drinker, I think there's always a place to try new things. And these wines that we have here that we now are carrying in the store, I would recommend any one of them for dinner with friends, or take it with you to a restaurant for a nice dinner.
Absolutely.
Just absolutely more out there than Chardonnay.
Yes.
Well, as Paul said, hopefully we piqued your interest into some new varietals to try. We're really going to work on continuing to expand everyone's palate, because we know we've found great joy in trying these different varietals and having something different to experience. So we hope you'll go along on that journey with us, and we look forward to chatting with you guys again soon. Have a great day.
Cheers.